Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at this little fellow right here, Hexemonia. This is put out by Pendragon Game Studios, and it is basically a city building game. You're basically trying to build up your city-state as your Acropolis desires you to. Some centers of the civilization is going to want you to build certain kinds of tiles in order to score more points at the end of the game. But that's the general gist of it. At the end of the game, you want to have the most points, the best city-state that's out there. So let's get down to the table. I'll show you how it works and come back in a little bit with some final thoughts. Let's hit it. Now, in Hexemonia, you are trying to build up your city-state in such a way that scores you a number of points at the end of the game. For example, down here, you see that you'll get 1 victory point for every red and green hex that's in your city-state. You'll get 2 victory points for every blue or polis tile that's in there as well. And then there's other victory points for other things as well. And then your different city-states are going to score different numbers of victory points depending upon the kinds of tiles that are in your city-state. On your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to either, first of all, draw 2 tiles, or you can draw 1 tile and draw 1 resource. Now, when you draw tiles from the stack of fate over here, you have to take one of the 4 that are face up. So if you choose to take a Hephaestus here, he has to be automatically replaced like so. Then you have the choice of either taking 1 resource or taking another one of the face up tiles and then also immediately replacing it. Whenever you draw a tile, it must be replaced. So for my first turn, I'm going to just draw the 1 tile, Hephaestus, and then I'm also going to draw a resource, 1 soldier. Now I can take my hand of tiles here and I can play any number of them into my city-state. But in order to do that, I have to be able to place a number of tokens on it that are equal to the requirements here to make it active. So right now I can play this courtyard out here like so. Now when you play tiles into your city-state, they have to match or they have to touch at least 2 different tiles. At the beginning of the game, of course, that's impossible, so they have to touch at least your Acropolis. But later on, once you place, like the next tile I place, I'm going to have to place either here or here because it has to be touching both of these 2 tiles. But when you play a tile here, you have to move over as many tiles as would need, or cubes rather, as would need to make it active. Now, since I don't have what's necessary to place this out, I cannot play the walls, and I don't have a place for Hephaestus to be put out either, because when you play a mythic tile, you have to place their token in a spot that matches the symbol up here. The only one is right now is my Acropolis, and you can't put a myth token in an Acropolis. So I'm done playing tiles. So now I get to choose an action. There are 4 different actions that you can choose. The first one is production. If you choose to produce, all of your tiles in your city-state will produce what's necessary here. So if I chose production right now, I would simply take 1 citizen and place it in the courtyard. I could also choose to do a strategy action, which is basically taking tokens, or rather cubes, that are in my city-state and moving them around wherever I would like to, maybe to reactivate a tile that has become deactivated or something to that effect, whatever it might be. You can move your cubes around, and then if you wanted to, you could change any 2 citizens into a hoplite anywhere in your city-state as many times as you wanted to. The next action that you could do is choose to do a special action. Now, a special action is denoted by tiles that have this little cog symbol on it, and that denotes a special activity that you can do. If you choose to do special actions, you can choose to activate any or all of your special actions that are on active tiles. And then finally, the last action that you can choose is you can go to war, and that is where you're going to try to take over an opponent's tile that you want to have in your city-state. When you choose the war action, you can attack each of your opponents successively, whichever you'd like to do, but you don't have to attack everybody. You can just attack 1 or 2 or whatever you'd like, but you have the opportunity to attack everybody during a war action. And then finally, at the end of your turn, you're going to check your political situation. And what that basically means is that you will check your city-state for any I or polis or political nature tiles that are in your city-state. If you have the most political nature in your city-state, you will gain the Philosopher Pawn. The Philosopher Pawn will reside in your Acropolis, and he will make you immune to uprisings. Uprisings are what will happen next whenever the Philosopher Pawn changes possession, or if he's taken for the first time. Everybody else that doesn't have the Philosopher's Pawn must check for uprisings. And basically what that means is that you look at, for example, let's say that this is what was on this tile. You look at the requirements for the tile, and anything that is over in excess of what's necessary for this to be an active tile, you'll lose half of that rounded up if there's only one kind of resource. All right, so in this case, I would lose one citizen and he would go away. Now, let's say that this were the case like so. And if there are more than one that has an overage or an excess, then you would simply have to lose a number of cubes so that the excess is equal in each of the different types. So in this case, he'd only have to lose 1 gold, and now he has equal excess in all 3 different types. He's good to go. So for example, at the end of the first round here, Athens was able to add a village, which is a political nature tile. Now that is the only one that's out right now, so everybody else, they have the most. So the Philosopher Pawn is going to come over here to their city-state, and that's going to make them immune to uprisings. Now everybody else has to check their political state. So here the courtyards, or the countryside rather, has an excess of 1 citizen here, so this person has to lose, rounded up, half of their excess, and so this one will go away. Over here there is an excess in the gymnastics, so that is rounded up, has to go away. Over here we have one that is excess, so you lose 1 here. That goes away as well because you lose half rounded up of the excess. And that would finish the uprising. Now, another uprising is not going to happen again until this guy changes possession to one of the other ones. So it's not that huge of a part of the game. So a little bit later on in the explanation, we're going to be able to show what a war action looks like. It is Delphi's turn, and they're looking at Athens and saying, you're getting a little bit too big for your britches, so we need to knock you down a peg. So they're going to do that. They're going to launch an attack. Now, when they launch an attack, you have to attack a tile that is on the outskirts of the thing. You cannot attack something that is completely surrounded. You also can't attack a person's Acropolis ever. You can never do that. And you also can't attack a tile that would effectively divide the city-state into 2 halves. So with those caveats in mind, Delphi is going to attack the village here. Now the village, they're going to first of all take both of their hoplites. They have one here on the gymnasium and one on their Acropolis, and they're going to send them over to fight. Now the 2 Delphinian hoplites here are going to be battling the Athens citizens, and each hoplite is worth 2 power each. Each citizen is worth 1 power each. So basically 1 soldier equals 2 citizens. So we have 4 against 3 here. These are definitely defeated, but these hoplites have to suffer attrition for the battle as well. So they're going to be downgraded. This guy took out 2 of these. This guy took out this guy with 1 left over, so he becomes a white, and that's what's left. Now, this is taken and added to the Delphinian city-state. Now, when we start placing the new tile back into the Delphi city-state, it has to follow the same placement rules as normal. So it has to be placed between where it's touching 2 different tiles. So it could be placed over here or over here. It would not be able to be placed here because you have to finish the ring here before you can start building on the second ring. So we're going to go ahead and put the village right over here next to the pasture, and these are now mine as well. This guy can be used to make that village active, and so now we're done with that war action. And that's basically how each of the different elements of the game work. You're going to play the game until the last tile of the state, the stack of fate is turned over. At that point, the end of the game is triggered. Once the end of the game is triggered, you continue playing until you get to the person who has this token, so that everybody has an equal number of turns throughout the course of the game. So that's about that for Hexemonia. It is a simple game to play. You're simply just drawing tiles and then playing tiles onto your city-state, as long as you have enough resources to make them active when you do so. Possibly attacking some people every once in a while, producing goods so that you can use them to further build your city and so forth. So it's not that difficult of a game. It flows pretty well. It plays pretty quickly. Each person's turn is done pretty fast, so it moves along at a pretty good pace. But whoever has the most points based upon how their city-state scores at the end of the game is the winner, and that's it. Now, with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into some pros and cons. My first pro of the game is the gameplay. It does play very quickly, and it is quite fun to see your city-state grow over the course of the game. It's kind of a downer when you get attacked, or if you get attacked. It may not happen. It probably will. But other than that, it's really fun to see your city-state grow. It gives you that feeling of control, of mastery, so to speak, because you are deciding the fate of your civilization. So I like that when games give you that feel. You are different than everybody else, and you're striving for something that's slightly different than everybody else as well. You may want to have as many green tiles in your city-state as possible, but you're going to need to protect those as well. So you're going to need some of those fleets and some of those phalanxes to provide some protection for your other tiles that are in your city. So there's a balance that's going on there as well. I like that when games do that, because while you have your certain goal, you also have to dabble in some of these other things in order to protect that goal as well. So that's a cool thing. The artwork and graphic design is a pro for me as well. While it isn't ground-shakingly awesome or anything like that, it is thematic, and it does provide a certain level, not the greatest of course, but a certain level of immersion into the game as well, because you are getting into the different things that are there. Now, largely most of this is abstracted, but the artwork on the tiles does lend itself to keeping you engaged, at least. Maybe not completely immersed, but engaged at least in the theme of building up your Greek era city-state. Another pro for the game, and this will probably be my last one, is the Mythic Tiles, the gods and the different things that will bring their favor to your city-state if you have them. First of all, the Mythic Tiles can be a pretty huge scoring opportunity at the end of the game, but on top of that, they also provide a lot of really neat in-game bonuses that if you are controlling that tile, then it's going to give you some benefits depending on what type of action that you choose. So I do like the inclusion of those. It gives that, again, just another little bit of a tie-in to the theme that's going on here, and I enjoyed it a lot. Now, with those pros being said, there are some cons that I wanted to visit here just briefly so that we provide some balance for the game. First of all, the take that aspect of going to war, which is pretty much what it is, and there are some of those mythic tiles that have a pretty strong take that, where you can just simply make somebody lose a resource or lose a tile from their hand or something to that effect. With those two aspects really kind of playing together in this same take that realm, it makes the take that aspect of this game pretty heavy. So if you're not very keen on take that mechanisms or situations within games that feel like a take that type of scenario, then this might not be the game for you, because it is pretty strong with both of those elements working together. So you need to understand that going into it. Maybe the conflict, the war action aspect won't feel as much like a take that, because you will be able to defend yourself as long as you have been able to create your city-state in such a way that gives you that ability by using phalanxes and fleets and stuff like that to protect the surrounding tiles in your city. So maybe not that much, but the Mythics, they definitely have a pretty strong take that feel to them, so that might turn some people off. Another con for the game for me was the fact that it used wooden cubes for everything. I thought that with a little bit more production cost. They could have had little hoplite soldiers that came in, you know, something like, I don't know. There's a number of different games that just have little tiny hoplite soldiers for the red cubes, and then you can have some type of citizen pose in the same same size. Doesn't have to be huge for the citizens, and then maybe just like little gold nuggets or something to that effect for the gold cubes. I just didn't like the aesthetic look of having just a bunch of cubes everywhere. It's functional, it works, don't get me wrong, but I just didn't like the look of it. And it just, it's one of those disconnects for pulling me into the theme. So again, this isn't a huge con, but it's just one of those things that kind of further whittled away at my rating for the game, because theme is something that I'm looking for, and it's there in this game. It's just that there were some disconnects that kind of blocked my enjoyment of that theme. So with all that having been said, I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. I did enjoy the game. I played it more than a couple of times, and I enjoyed every time I played it. Other people that I played it with, some were not too keen on the whole take that thing with the mythics and with being able to battle and take people's lands from them. They were not too keen on that, which is why I mentioned it as a con. I'm not one that usually enjoys the whole city building aspect of games, mainly because most of the time they're a little bit too abstracted. But with this one and the artwork on the tiles, it kept me involved, and so I gave it a pass, kind of. And so while 6 out of 10 might not seem very much of a high glowing praise, for me it kind of is for this kind of game, because I'm usually not one that enjoys city building type games. But 6 out of 10 from me for Hexemonia. I did enjoy the game. I think you should give it a try before you buy it. Of course, that's what I usually say anyway, but give it a whirl. You might like it a lot better than I do. So that's 6 out of 10 for me for Hexemonia. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care now.